Welcome to the Bob Priest Show of Life podcast. I'm your host, Bob Priest. Thanks for tuning in today's show. This podcast is dedicated to individuals and professionals who desire to learn more about the subject of health and wellness, as well as alternative technologies to better health and vitality. Let's get started. Welcome to the Bob Priest Show of Life. I'm your host, Bob Priest. Thanks for joining us today. My guest today is Sammy Wilson. Welcome, Sammy.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, as you can tell real quick that Sammy is from across the pond. And, we're going to have a great time today. Sammy is from the Pocket PT. She is a movement and mobility coach specializing in helping people who spend a lot of time working at the desk to move more, ache less, and feel more energized. She has a BCS in sports and exercise science. She's a qualified level 3 personal trainer, a retired athlete. We'll talk more about that later. And she competed for the Great Britain artistic swimming team. And now she's been navigating the challenges of staying mobile while spending a lot of time at a desk. So, welcome, Sammy. This is a lot to talk about today. Can't wait to hear your story. But so tell us a little bit about Sammy, kind of who you are and what you've been all about, and a little bit about your athletic success and stuff, and then we'll get more into what you do.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'll start as you mentioned, my history as an athlete, I guess. All throughout childhood, I was always like a sporty person. I did like gymnastics, swimming, and eventually that led into, well, then it was called synchronized swimming. Now it's called artistic swimming. So I'm not sure which one people will know it as, but yeah, I got into that and did loads and loads of training for that. I eventually got into the Great Britain team. So competed for my country. That was pretty cool. I did a couple of years as a junior, and a couple of years in the senior team as well. And that was just probably the most intense thing I've ever done in terms of training. So we used to train anywhere from like sort of 45, 50 hours a week. There's a lot of training, and that was made up of like stuff in the pool. So, obviously your actual training, the skills, that kind of thing. And then also stuff on the land. We'd do like speed swimming as well, loads of strength training, obviously flexibility, I'm sure you can imagine. So yeah, loads of different training things we used to do as well. And obviously doing any kind of elite sport, I'm sure anyone that's been there knows it's really hard on the sort of mental side as well. There's so much pressure, especially in an artistic sport. There's always a thing of like, when there's a team, or you'll be sidelined if you don't do a good job, sort of thing. So yeah, mentally and physically, really, really hard. So I ended up retiring at the age of 19, which I'm sure is quite mad for a lot of people. Obviously, that's not a life.
When did you actually start competing in the artistic swimming? What age were you?
Oh, I started it when I was 10, which is actually quite late. Like a lot of people started like kind of 6 or 7. And I guess probably started competing quite soon after that in like little sort of local competitions. And then my first international competition was for the England team. And I think that was when I was like 13, 14, about that. So yeah, just quite young.
Well, that is quite young. And something you said, it wasn't just a physical drain on you, it was an extreme mental drain.
Yeah.
And to be a 10-year-old competing on the international level at age 13, your lifespan as an elite athlete, you had to kind of get everything in there in a short period of time, didn't you?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, it's one of those sports where you don't tend to do it when you're older. Like probably the older ones are like, I mean, 19 is quite young, but it is a relatively young sport. So yeah, you do have to get up there quite fast and at a young age. I mean, I had to stop school. Like most people, I don't know what it's like where you're from. In England, most people go to school until 18. But I obviously had to stop that early and kind of do that afterwards. Because sport had to take priority, because when you're training for 50 hours a week, you can't really do school as well.
Oh, that was your job. You were
It was,
you
yeah,
were doing what
intense
most
time.
people do for a living, as you were working 40, 50 hours a week. So explain to us a little bit more about what artistic swimming is. I know
Oh,
we've had some conversations about that, but a lot of people don't understand what it is. And to be quite honest, they don't understand how hard it is.
yeah, they don't. So, it's quite hard to explain without like a visual, isn't it?
Yes.
If you've literally never seen it, it's basically the best way to explain it is something similar to like a combination of gymnastics and dance, but in the water. So you're upside down, holding your breath, waving your legs in the air. I'm doing it with my arms, but you can't see it, can you? Waving your legs. It's all in time. So you have like teams, duets. You also have solos, but they're not. I didn't do that. And you like throw each other out the water. Um, yeah, that's kind of the best way to explain it. And it's all about um, you have to look like it's easy while it's very, very hard. So you're like holding your breath for ages, and then you come up and you feel like you just want to like like explode, and you just have to come up and smile and be like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the hard bits about it. And it's so much harder than people think. I think a lot of people think we're standing on the floor, but we're not. You get a massive penalty if you touch the floor. You're treading water the whole time, sculling, kicking each other accidentally, of course, but that's a big part of it. And yeah, it is a very challenging sport as a team.
I kind of imagine it to being like a duck on water. What we see on top of the water is this cool looking duck, its head
Yeah,
high, but underneath it's pedaling like crazy.
that's exactly what it's like. Yeah.
And
Um,
I've watched this sport before on television during
have
Olympics
you?
and things like that, and I was just fascinated because most of the time I see feet and legs in the air. I see people bobbing up every once in a while, and I'm like,
Mhm.
when do they breathe? When do this is
Not
hard.
much.
I've I've been in the pool swimming many times, and it's a very taxing just on a normal basis. And you
Yeah.
do what you're doing. So I commend you for being a part of this, and especially at a young age. Now, you retired at what age?
At 19,
At 19.
very old age.
God bless you. I'm 66, and it took me a while to get to my retirement. But I'm proud of you for what you did do, and I know I'm sure that the training, the many hours, the mental aspect of it has helped build you into the young woman that you are today. So now you're
Yeah.
into the working world, and so let's transition. You've started a pocket PT movement and mobility coach. So let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that and what that really is and how you feel like that's helping people now, like yourself.
Yeah, sure. So it's a new thing I'm starting. It's a business based on helping people who spend a lot of time sat down at a desk. And we've all felt it when you just feel like achy, lethargic, like tired on a daily basis, and it's really hard to get out of it. It's almost like a vicious cycle, right? The more sort of achy and tired you get, the less you want to move and do stuff, and then you feel more achy and tired. So it's really, really hard to get out of. And my goal with this company is just to make it easy and enjoyable for people to get moving, basically. And the reason I'm doing this is because I experienced that a lot. So when I retired from synchro, when I sort of was like, right, I need to get into a serious working job now, like a normal person, and I got into like a series of desk jobs, and as a result, I ended up with actually like a really bad long-term back pain. And it took me quite a while to get it sorted because I went to, this is a bit of an embarrassing story actually. I went to a few different physios, and they all said like, oh, it's all you need to work on your like flexibility or your core or your muscles. And I was like, nah, that's not, I didn't say this to their face, but in my head I was like, that can't be it. Like I'm a retired elite athlete. Like my muscles are good. Like, and I'm really flexible. I'm strong. All those kind of things. So kind of like it took me a while to sort of believe it and do the right thing. But what it was that even though I was fit and strong and I was still doing exercise, I was doing like swimming and like CrossFit even after I'd retired from synchro. But because I was being still all day and just sat in a chair, like I am now, to be fair, but just sat down, that wasn't enough to sort of compensate. And that's why my back was getting really sore, just because I was still all day. And I think that helped me realize, and from sitting in office as well and talking to other people in the office, I realize it's a really common thing, and people don't realize if especially if they're doing their sports in the evening. Back then, when I was working at a desk, I was swimming every morning and then sitting at my desk for probably like 10, 11 hours and then going to the gym in the evening. So in my head, I thought I was still being a really active person. And I think a lot of people fall into their trap, and they don't realize the importance of just moving in the right ways and moving enough throughout the day. So yeah, I just want to help people do that.
Yeah, being a a former teacher and
Mhm.
educator of many years, I did a lot of sitting
I bet,
throughout the
yeah.
day, and I was a high school band director, so I probably moved more than the average teacher.
Mhm.
I was having to move around the classroom a lot to help band kids, but I would find
Yeah.
myself quite frequently feeling tight in my lower back and especially up my shoulders, where you kind of hump over from looking at a computer or whatever it is that
Hmm.
you're doing
I'm
X
doing that now.
hours, like right now. So I
Yeah.
can imagine that is a real big area for us as people, and as we aged,
Hmm.
um, things don't move quite like they used to, and so a lot of times, I even went through this. A lot of times, getting up at the end of the day after being at school for
Hmm.
all day, chasing kids around and so on, the last thing I wanted to do was go to the gym and beat myself up. And
I bet, yeah.
yeah, and here you were doing something athletic in the morning, working, doing something athletic in the evening, and still you still had this problem that was
Hmm.
created. So I find that I think that's important. But during the day, we need to be doing something, whether it's standing up, walking up and down the hall a few minutes, doing some other exercises that you're going to talk to us about here in just a minute. So, what seems to contribute most to people's pain? You would think you're sitting, you're just working a computer, or you're writing, or you're reading. You would think that why would I have pain from this? What
Yeah.
do you think contributes to people's pain when they're in that kind of state?
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons I was so confused. I was like, my life used to be so hard doing all this intense training. And now, like, comparatively, it's much easier. Like, I'm just sitting still doing nothing. And yeah, it blew my mind at the time. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing is just sitting down or just being still for a long time. And there are things that can make it worse or better. So if you're sitting still, it can be a lot better if you're sitting with good posture and you have your computer set up in the right place. So it's all in line with your eyes, you've got everything within reach, you're good, you get it for regular movement breaks. Whereas if you've got sort of a less good chair, for example, like it's a bit, I don't know, rigid or doesn't support your back right, or you're having to reach, or the screen's at a weird angle, things can make it a lot worse as well. But yeah, in my opinion, the biggest thing is just not moving, not doing your regular movements. And it can just be simple. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to go to the gym necessarily every day. It's just getting your body doing something.
Well, give us a couple of examples of what you would. Okay, I'm your client, so I tell you my problem is my lower back gets really stiff, and my around my neck gets stiff, and I have a hard time feeling like I'm loose and comfortable. What are some things you would tell me to do that would be simple, something I could do on a regular basis?
Okay, yeah. So number one thing I'd say during your workday, if you're sat down for a long time, just get yourself moving. So if you, for example, one thing I like to do is just set an alarm, because it's really, really easy to get into the trap of when you're like stuck into your work. I know the feeling, it's going really well. You're like, oh, I'm just stuck in, I need to keep at it. Um, but just set an alarm at whatever you think is manageable, whether it's every like half an hour or every hour, and just commit to just every time your alarm goes off, just get up and just walk like one lap around your office or one lap around the block or something like that. And you can do whatever kind of movement suits you. So like I said, you can just walk around. You could, if you work in a bigger office, you could go, and I always say you can go and offer to make everyone a drink. That's always quite a nice one, gets you moving. You could even do a few like kind of short mobility exercises. So if it's suitable where you work, or if you're working from home, literally just pick 3 or 4 exercises that are good for you for your mobility. Just do those, and there's some that you can even do at your desk. I can go through some of you, but you can get them. Obviously, this probably isn't good for me to say because I'm a mobility coach. but you can get them like free online. Just look on YouTube. There's like mobility routines you can do. Yeah, just anything. And of course, if in your example, if you're struggling with your lower back pain, that is really important to do the right kind of stretches, even if it's just a few times a week to start with. But stretching the right muscles, if it's your lower back, it's often the structures around it. So maybe your like hip flexors, your lower back, your glutes, that kind of thing. Just stretching out your muscles that are probably getting tight, and potentially weak as well from just sitting down all day. And what I sort of class mobility as, this is someone who gets a bit lost in translation. A lot of people think I mean literally just stretching. But for me, it's the combination of stretching and also like a bit of strength training as well that's really important, because your muscles, they don't just need to be able to be long and flexible. That's not actually that useful for most people's lives. You want them to be flexible so they can move, but also with strength. So as you're moving them, they need to be strong as you're doing it. And that's what's going to be best to support sort of your bones, like your spine, for example.
So people don't necessarily need to get up and go to the gym, even though that's a good thing. But they could do things within the office, whether it's deep knee bends. They could get some books that are laying around or something to do some picking up of stuff to get some, to get their muscles warmed up and moving. Of course, the stretching is important. I had a stroke a few years back, and ever since the stroke, this right side of my body, if I sit too long, I don't feel it anymore. It kind of goes away. So for me, I've had to really become very aware that if I sit very long, everything turns off, and I have to turn it on quite frequently. So moving my arms, moving my right side of my body, walking, exercising daily has become a big part of my routine. And of course, that's where my podcast title came from, the Bob Priest Show of Life. And I've just been living life, but life throws some stuff at you. And here you were an athlete, an elite athlete that retired at 19. So your life is still very much ahead of it. And you found out in a very short period of time, after being such a strong athlete and you just never feeling these things, that all of a sudden, gosh, things aren't working like they used to. So it doesn't take very long for us to go into a state of decline.
Yeah, not at all. No, it can come on gradually. But yeah, also it can come fast depending on what it is, but it can take you by surprise, can't it? And you're suddenly
can.
Yeah.
So
I think you suddenly feel
I'm 66. I'm sure you're in your 20s somewhere. I don't know exactly
just
where.
about.
I'm not going to ask you on live show, but you've got quite a bit of life ahead of you. And but for somebody like me that's further down the road, and I'm dealing with more of those kinds of issues. Are there any very specific things that you would tell me that, Bob, you need to do this on a regular basis? This will help you be more mobile throughout the rest of your life. Is there anything that you could tell our folks out in podcast land that could help them?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, for people that are sort of getting older, that's when it becomes even more important. The moving on a regular basis, the mobility routine. So those are the things that the kind of exercises that are incorporating the movement and strength at the same time. And what I've noticed before is that a lot of people, even people that are my sort of age, kind of blame, I found myself doing this before, blame like their lack of mobility on age, and that's not always the case. So I've caught myself before I started doing all this, when I worked in an office, I'd like go to get up from a chair and it would hurt, and I'd be like, oh, I'm so old. And then like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not actually old, right, on the grand scale of things. But I think people always have that acceptance that as you get older, you're gonna just be more sore and more achy, and you just have to deal with it. But what I want to teach people and help people understand is that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't need to just accept that you're going to be more sore and achy as you get older. There's so much that you can do about it. And if you do the right kind of exercises and move your body often, you can be fitter and healthier and more mobile than a young person that sits still all day. Like, it's entirely possible. I've seen it, definitely. But yeah, for you, well, for anyone that's feeling tight, it's doing a variety of things as well. So a lot of people have, for example, one sport. I know a lot of people that get really into cycling or running, which is great. It's really great for your health, your mental health, your physical health, your inside, all that, to do any kind of like cardiovascular activity. But try and mix it up when you can. Try and do different things with your muscles as well. Get them moving in different ways. For example, if you only ever do running, your sort of shoulders and your legs are only used to moving kind of forwards and backwards, right? So you want to do other things. You want to like twist and lean and do you know what I mean? Use your other muscles, get a good balance. So that's a really important thing, using your whole body, doing different kind of mobility routine, and get that strength up as well. I've always recommended a good balanced combination of cardiovascular training, resistance training, and like mobility training. I think those are the top three that you need to make sure are balanced.
So it's kind of like CrossFit.
Sure, yeah. They don't do much mobility though. They're not very good at that.
Yeah. Like I said, I go to the gym and it's real easy to get caught up in your routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you're saying, you're moving certain muscles every time you go in the same way. Yeah, they may get bigger, they may get stronger, but there's all these little things, these little muscles, these that you don't normally do. And all of a sudden something happens and you feel a tweak somewhere and you go, where'd that come from? What did I do? Well, you hadn't strengthened that side. Like when I was doing some twists a couple of weeks ago, I put more weight on my twisting, and I tweaked the left side. And I'm like, a day later, I'm like, okay, what did that come from? And I realized I had upped my weight before, and I did it too fast. I should have not gone that high. I was feeling frisky that day. And so I realized what I did. So I backed off and I've done something a little different. But my wife and I both have realized that when we go to the gym, we've got to mix it up a lot, because there's a lot of more muscles that need to be moved, and because they'll get atrophy, and that's become real important. Of course, and we're talking about more the outside aspect of good physical well-being. There's the inside, and our cells are dying off from age 10 on. I mean, you as an elite athlete at age 10, that was the peak of your life.
That's the beginning of the end.
As far as the cells in your body, as we age,
crazy, isn't it?
About 1% every 10 years or so. It's I'm close to 70, so about 70% of my cells are gone. And
that's a sad way of putting it.
But that's when disease and things like that start occurring. And there's a reason. And there's things that can be done if we really pay attention to what's going on in the world around us. And that's what you're doing. And that's why I commend you, Sammy, for being willing to get on a podcast and talk about your message and what you do. And I want to encourage my listeners that if you want to learn more about exercise science and the reasons why we need to move the way we move and find different ways to move, no matter what our ages are, then we need to talk to a coach a lot of times. It's important to have a coach. It doesn't matter if it's physical, could be a mental coach, an emotional coach, a spiritual coach. We need those kind of people in our life so that we can stay well balanced. And I really commend you for that. So I have a question for you. Have you written any books or articles on this subject about your program or anything?
I haven't actually. No, I haven't. Not much of a writer. I've only just started this business up now. I'm just getting started. I've programmed, getting people going, making it fun. That's my main message at the moment, is making it fun and enjoyable for people. Maybe a book or something in the future.
Well, here's your title for your book.
Oh, go on.
Tips and Tricks for Overall Well-Being.
Oh, I like that.
So write that down. I expect to see that on the shelf sometime in the next year or so.
Published next year, yeah.
I have fun when I'm doing my podcast. I always try to find something within the conversation. Then I talk about write your own book, write your own story. And so how about articles? Do you have any articles out on the web anywhere that people can read about this?
I don't personally, no, I haven't got into anything like that yet. I am just starting out. But hopefully it is something that I would look into in the future, because it is an easy new way to put it across, isn't it? The thing I do is I do it more video wise. So I've got a Facebook group where I go live every week and just talk to people for like 15 minutes about I guess it's the same as what you'd say in an article, right? But I just say it rather than writing it down. So I just share little tips and tricks every week about different ways people can move and, you know, different topics relating to it.
Tell our listeners your Facebook group and how they can look at that and maybe become part of the group.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Facebook group, it's called Active Thriving Professionals. So if you just look that up on Facebook, it should come up. You have to request to join, but I'll let you in if you're a nice person. I'm sure you
Okay.
are. Yeah. And you can just catch me on live every week there.
So that's active thriving professionals.
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay. Active thriving professionals for those out there listening.
Give it a search.
So I always ask my guests to leave a couple pieces of value for our audience. That's something that you think that they need to think about. Maybe since we're talking about mobility and those types of things, what are two things that you would like to leave with the audience today?
Okay, I'd say my number one, like top tip for anyone listening, anyone that doesn't feel like they've got perfect mobility, is just assess your own mobility throughout the week. So just have a look at what you're doing. If you're sat down for a lot of the day, just kind of do a little self-assessment and just say, am I moving enough? And just be honest with yourself. If you've got any kinds of aches and pains, have an actual deep think about what it could be. If it's probably not what you're thinking. A lot of people think, oh, it's just because I'm getting old, or oh, it's just because of, something else, or try and actually look at your day and think, am I moving enough? And my second thing would be to make an actual a plan for yourself, so a realistic plan. And the key here is to make it something that's really doable. So whenever I coach anyone, I don't like to just say, right, you need to, obviously, in an ideal situation, you'd be moving all day long, you'd go to the gym probably 5-6 days a week, you'd be doing your mobility every day, a variety of different sports, but that's not really achievable for anyone, is it? Unless you don't do anything else with your life, but that's probably not the case. So just make a realistic plan, even if it's just saying, I'm going to do like 2 or 3 mobility sessions every week, or I'm going to go to the gym once, or I'm just going to move 10 times throughout the day. I'm going to set my alarm 10 times and just move 10 times, but just make it realistic and make it something that you can definitely do. Because once you've got the ball rolling, it honestly is, it's a snowball effect. You move more and then you feel better and then you feel like moving more, and it's just starting. Starting is the hardest bit. So make a really realistic plan that you're not going to fail. You're not going to feel like you failed at it. You can realistically do. If you need accountability, which a lot of people do, I need it. So I just drop in. A lot of people think this is really weird, but I can't train myself because I don't have that accountability in myself. So if I just say, well, I'm going to go to the gym today, I probably won't. I need to either go with a friend. I actually have a personal trainer, even though I'm one, that I go to just because it makes me go. So some people have it in themselves to go on their own. A lot of people don't. So either arrange to meet a friend at the gym, so that's guaranteeing you're going to go. Some people keeping a diary is enough. Some people you need to sign up to a gym where you've got classes you book onto. For some things you've got an online thing, like I run an online mobility club. A lot of people find that is good for accountability. So just find something for your accountability. Sorry, that's quite a long point.
Well, here that's a really good tip, and I want to kind of reiterate it. You're a coach. You're somebody that helps other people that are accountable to you, but you also are accountable to somebody because you know that you need that to stay up with what you
accountability.
Yeah, because you are an elite athlete, so you really understand the importance of the coaching aspect, what the coach brings to the table if they're a good coach, and that's what we need. And I think for us as an audience, no matter where we are in life, we need to have those accountability partners in our life. I find it also interesting. I've been reading a book called The Atomic Habits, little teeny habits, and the importance of just taking that little habit and every day. And you kind of mentioned that in your second part of your plan. The realistic plan is they don't have to be these big grandeur things that you go, I'm going to do this, and this, and it's on this big, large scale. It's those little atomic things that we do on a daily basis that are more important than the big gestures. So I think that's really good, Sammy, and I like that. I think that's a great thought process. So as we kind of wrap up today, is there anything else that you would like to share with my audience before we say goodbye to you?
Oh, I don't know. Is there anything else you think they could learn from mobility stuff?
How about just in life in general? I
Just
love
in
your
life in
attitude, by the
general.
way, Sammy. I love your attitude. You just have this. I know my audience can't see this. I get to because we're on a Zoom, but she's got this big old smile. It's been fun to watch her and talk with her. And so you're a really happy person. It seems like you've got a lot of things going on for you. So just one big thing that you think that audience could learn from a young elite athlete who just retired and is working in the workaday world, what would you say to us?
Well, how about that? How about we keep it that simple? Just have fun in life. Whatever you're doing, make sure you enjoy it. And I always say that with exercise as well. That's actually another tip that I forgot to mention, but make sure whatever you're doing, make sure it's something you enjoy. I'd never recommend someone like me. I personally hate running. I'd never say someone like me should go out for a run every day. Just don't do it. Do something. There's so many different sports and activities out there. Just find whether it's, I don't know, trampolining or ice skating, what yoga, whatever it is you enjoy, find it and do what you enjoy. And that'll make such a difference. And yeah, just keep moving, have fun while you're doing it, do it with friends, have fun. that is
That's
the key
great.
message here.
I
Enjoy it.
I've heard this for years is if you find the job that you really enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life. And
I love that. Yeah.
so I think those are good thought processes. Well, folks, to learn more about me and my mission to educate the public about integrative medicine and other alternative healing modalities, go to www.bobpriest.life. That's BOBPRIEST.LIFE. While there, read a blog or two and check out the Bob Priest Show of Life and other episodes that have aired before this one. Sammy, thank you so much for being a guest with us today. I look forward to having more conversations down the road and learning more about what you're doing in your now retired state of life.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Good. Well, you have a great day. And folks, we'll talk to you again next week.